Hello and welcome to the education webinars conducted by the Hindu every Saturday at 5 p.m. Today is a very special webinar. It has a much wider context, geopolitical, economic, social, and so on. We see a lot of sentiment against Indians going for higher studies, also for jobs in the US and also in some other countries, and Indians are looking for alternatives to study and for working too, job prospects elsewhere too. And in one of our past articles, we wrote about why aren't Indians going to Japan? And coincidentally enough, the Japanese government has officially launched a program to invite students, Indians, for higher studies as well as jobs. The jobs thing has been happening for some time. We've heard that it's been covered well in the news. Those articles too got read by thousands of people, and it sort of shows the interest in Japan as a destination for higher studies and jobs. And so today we are going to unveil this program that the Japanese government is rolling out. We have representatives from various sectors of this discussion and a very distinguished panel. I welcome them all. We have Sagar Bahadur. He'll explain. He heads the nodal agency that implements these programs. We have Jenica, who works for the Japanese government, the Japanese External Trade Organization. They're responsible for promoting trade as well as to sort of facilitate facilitate Indians seeking jobs in Japan. We have Hargun, who has studied in the University of Tokyo, and she's representing University of Tokyo here, which is the main university that is sort of taking care of the Study in Japan initiative. We have Samir Arora. He is the principal of Shiv Nada School in Gurgaon. He's coming here to give the perspective to support parents or students who may be considering. So he's going to give us expert advice on that. We will start with Sagar. Sagar, tell us, sir, what's happening? What's the news?
Good
Konbawa.
afternoon. Good afternoon. So I think, firstly, a pleasure to be here. Very fortunate that we were speaking about this subject and very timely webinar that, we'll be conducting here. Uh, I think for us, Japan is one of the best kept secrets when it comes to higher education opportunities. It's one of those countries which is rewriting how higher education landscape, will redefine itself. Now at Acumen, for the last 2 decades, we've been working with over 12 different education destinations. We have seen them grow. We have seen those cycles. And I can say that what we are seeing in Japan at this point, especially given where we stand in geopolitics and the visa policy regimes and all, how Japan is progressing towards this whole scenario is something uh, quite amazing. It's starting at foundational levels. It's talking about studies, and it's also talking about integration in the workforce. And I think that creation of that ecosystem is something very unique, something very timely as well. And I think in the last 2 years, what we have seen, how the governments, schools, universities, and different stakeholders, how they're aligning themselves, how they're moving forward to create these bridges, is very exciting. It's very encouraging. Uh, we are doing our part of translating that vision of the Japanese government, which is to have 400,000 international students to fuel their education system there from various countries. A large part of that, they are wanting this movement to happen from South Asia, particularly from India. And in our views, when we started this project to translate the vision of the Japanese government, we came with this very clear fundamental that one is the problem of awareness. We need to talk more about the quality of education, the affordability of the education, how developed Japan is, the opportunities it has, uh, and also about once if we're able to get this, who's going to nurture the student interest. Are we having the right infrastructure to take these students, their interest, and convert that into students really studying in Japanese institutions? Um, while all this is happening, which over this webinar we'll talk about, I think one of the most important things that have happened is also that the Japanese institutions over the last few years, and increasingly so now, have started English language programs. Us being in the sector also were very pleasantly surprised that there are numerous programs being taught in English. If you talk about the fee and all, which we'll cover again in the webinar, it's 1/10 of what you would pay when you go to the US. So you're talking about great quality, great affordability and ROI. And there are different programs under the Study in Japan programs that have been rolled out. And I think over this webinar, I'll be very happy to share more information along with the other colleagues as well. Thank you.
Excellent. That sort of sets the stage. I suppose we're all eager to ask no more from all the panelists. Questions are being asked already. I see some 20 questions already about all the typical things. But anyway, I invite Hargun. Tell us more about how was your experience. Personal experiences always resonate. Why did you choose Japan? You had no previous connection, and how was it? You just landed there in Tokyo one fine day to study, or what?
Okay, hi, konbanwa. So I am Hargun, and I serve as the Senior Recruitment Advisor for the University of Tokyo and the Study in Japan project by MEXT at Acumen. So in my current role, I work very closely with students, both undergrad and postgrad, and I try to create pathways for these young kids to explore study opportunities in Japan. Rightly said, before starting to work for Japan, I was a student myself there. So I was fortunate enough, I believe, to live and study in Japan. And I feel that experience completely transformed the way I look at education, work, and even life. So studying in Japan taught me a lot of things. It taught me discipline and a deep respect for collaboration. I did not randomly land in Tokyo one day. So I had the opportunity to be a part of an exchange program when I was in high school. So through that, I had this chance to be in Japan for a bit and live there as a student. And I think I fell in love with the country, the people, how beautiful it is, and it became my high school dream to come live in Japan, to study in Japan, and that's what I did. So I went back to Japan for my masters, and I studied in a university in Kyoto, and now I work with Japan as the recruitment advisor, where we talk about studying in Japan, opportunities in Japan. So I believe, like, in terms of my personal experience, Japan is a unique destination because it offers deep tradition and futuristic innovation at one place. So you can spend a morning at a very beautiful centuries old shrine, and in the evening you can watch world class research unfold in labs working on robotics, AI, or sustainability. So for international students, I also feel that it's one of the safest and the most welcoming countries. You not only learn academics, you also learn adaptability because it's a country which is not English speaking. So you learn a lot of skills that are very, very important for today's interconnected world. And I feel we'll talk more about this as we go on and we go further. I'd like to highlight that the University of Tokyo and many other Japanese universities are now offering programs completely in English in fields ranging from engineering, AI, life sciences, public policy, humanities. And there are multiple scholarships. As Sagar already touched upon the affordability bit, we will talk further. But there are multiple scholarships like the MEXT, then there is the JASO scholarship, and then each university has their own tuition fee reduction scholarships. So this kind of makes studying in Japan highly affordable, and the exposure to cutting edge research and industry partnerships that all these universities come with is quite invaluable. So I would just say that, in short, my own journey in Japan showed me how transformative this experience can be. And today, as a part of this Study in Japan project, I think a collective goal here today is to open, this door wider for Indian students and encourage them not only to, dream about studying abroad, but to choose Japan as a place where they can study and eventually work.
Excellent. People are firing away the questions. We will get to them, I think, earlier than in other webinars. I think it's better to just answer these questions in these very specific questions, but then in that general information will also come out from the panelists, I suppose. Jenica, could you tell us, you have English language programs in the universities, but if someone wants to work in Japan, how important is language? What are the job
I
opportunities?
Right. So I will move on to the job opportunities later. Before that, I will just set the context about introducing myself and the organization that I work at. Uh, to begin with, first of all, I'm very thrilled to be a part of this webinar, which is on Japanese government efforts for career opportunities for Indians and other nationals in Japan. And I would also like to thank the Hindu group and Acumen team, especially Sagar, for giving this opportunity to me. Like I said about the organization that I work at JETRO, which is Japan External Trade Organization. It is actually a government organization, like you also said, to facilitate trade and investment between Japan and India. So in India, JETRO has actually been active for some years now, supporting Japanese companies as they expand here. But also, we facilitate Indian companies and researchers and professionals who look to Japan. So when I talk about the India-Japan partnership, it's quite strong. About 1,400 Japanese companies already operate in India across sectors such as there's automobiles, of course, IT, logistics, finance, healthcare, and manufacturing. And the presence continues. At the same time, Japan is also opening its doors to global talent. With advanced manufacturing base in Japan, research institutions, growing need for young skilled professionals, as you know, it is an aging society. Japan has now become an attractive destination for Indian talent, particularly in IT, engineering, research, and development. And also, collaboration is not limited to industry. I always smile when I talk about this. Beyond business and academia, there is a softer but equally powerful dimension, which is the Japanese content. It's my favorite, especially anime, manga, game, which has now become a household name in India. This cultural familiarity makes it much easier for students and professionals to integrate when they choose Japan as a destination for higher studies or career advancement. So I think with today's session, we can explore these opportunities more closely, understand how both countries, India and Japan, can work together to create other meaningful outcomes where Indian youth can actually find opportunities in Japan and Japanese institutions and companies can benefit from India's talent pool. Coming back to your question, I think other panelists will also speak about it. When you ask about the English language being used at the workforce, I mean, I think a lot of startups, IT companies, they in fact welcome global talent, and Japanese language is no more mandatory. But I feel, for your daily life to become more comfortable there, a basic proficiency of Japanese language helps. So that I think should answer the question. Thank you again, and I look forward to today's discussion.
Yes, we too. We'll ask Samir. Samir, tell us. We discussed a little bit about the context to what are the choices for an Indian student when he's considering higher studies abroad. Perhaps you can talk about that in your students have gone to Japan. What has been their experience?
Um, Thank you, Mr. Kalyan. Thank you, Sagar, Janika, and Argun. You made my job slightly, I don't know, easier or more difficult. But I think the context is very, very important. I think right now, when we look at Japan as a strategic partnership, Honorable Prime Minister has talked about joint vision for the next decade and Japan's commitment to 10 trillion yen being committed to India. And I think one of the strategic partnerships they've been talking about in the domains of investment, innovation, security, climate, and human resource. So I come from a school background where we claim to we commit to build human resource capital for the world. In my experience of about 20 years, we started a Japanese exchange program for an organization called Youth for Understanding way back in 2004. And my first student I sent to Japan was also Hargun. So I was wondering if this is the same Hargun. I think so far students have come up with three fundamental key takeaways when they came back from exchange programs, which are short-term exchange programs to 6 weeks to 6 months. They feel that society is very welcoming. Uh, it's extremely disciplined and safe to travel anywhere in the world. So I think one is the key things which parents decide about sending the kids overseas is about child safety assimilation in the society. The second thing they talk about the level of innovation and disruptive thinking which happens in Japan. Students talk about that a lot. And third, of course, we have some students from Shavnada School who are enrolled, and some have graduated from Japanese university. Talk about the kind of extensive support which university has been able to offer to the students studying there. I think, giving the context, also, I think Japan is less talked about as an innovation center. But if you fundamentally look at the history of developments, almost 24 Nobel laureates have come from Japan only. So I think the next era of robotics, tech, engineering, AI innovation we're talking about, Japan is going to be one of the key hubs. And in present geopolitical situations, what better than Asian countries which are closer home, cost of attendance is low, student safety is guaranteed. So far from our student experience so far, I think there are key takeaways one can take. But yes, I'm going back to Jonathan, though, even if you say that the language is not important for employment, I feel it's very important to understand the context and the culture of the country. So it may not be primary language for you, but I think when you start living in a country and choose to stay back, I think it's important that children stay open-minded to do that. And I think for that, schools can also start taking some initiatives. For school heads, I would say what we can start doing is right now building curiosity about Japanese culture and languages. And I think anime has done a great job in that context. We have to do less. Just like we offer Spanish, French, and German are the most commonly offered languages in schools today as a second language or third language. I think Japanese language can also be introduced, given the context of this commitment between two prime ministers of the two countries. So that's one aspect. I think other aspect is also invitational programs, exchange programs between schools of Japan and schools of India will open the possibilities of exploring that country in a big way. And I and Sagar were also talking about should we work on getting a delegation of people who can lead this conversation. Another aspect is we've not talked about. I think in context of Japan as a society being very humble, it hasn't talked about and positioned itself very well in a true marketing sense. I think there needs to be some noise made about what is happening in Japan in country. I think that'll also open possibilities for children, and I think these. But one should also understand that that Japanese government and from Japan, what we expect is there is a development of English language programs, but I think we need to expand number of full degree programs taught in English. Also create academic equivalence and credit transfer for Indian boards could be a good option. I'm not aware if IB credits and CBSE credits are being given students who excel at high school level. Other aspect could be also, I think, talking about the safe Japan as a safe destination. One can educate parents on that part. And I think the last is, visa to employment pathway, very transparent for international students, whether that's undergraduate degree or graduate programs. Also promoting internships within Japan industries. Say, for example, if you want to open pathways for graduate programs, what we qualify as postgraduate programs in India, do you want to pick up some Indian students from Indian universities to take them for internships there, or externships there? So I think this part, and finally, maybe provide bilingual job placement support so students don't face a language ceiling when applying. So a couple of points from my end, and happy to shift it back to you and happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Very, very practical takeaways. Yes, it's official. The governments are interested. Perhaps schools should consider teaching Japanese. They teach French. They teach Spanish. Very interesting point. I will highlight Hargun's answer to a question. She's given an email link. Can that be shown here. Hargun's intervention. She's given, yes, please note, if people are watching, this is where it's like the entry portal. It's where you can start, you can go there and find out basic information. Many of these questions are asking for basic information. Please do note this URL down and visit that website to get more information for starters. And we will straight jump into the questions because they're coming at such a rapid rate. And while we are answering these questions, I hope the broader aspects will also be answered. I will flash Yatharth. He had actually posed this question before it started, before the webinar started. He's saying, with Japan increasingly investing in AI, robotics, and software development, what specific skills or specializations should a computer science undergraduate focus on to secure high growth opportunities and long-term career prospects in Japan? Who would like to take this up? Anyone?
Arjun, you want to go, and then I can jump in.
Yeah, so I think it's asking about specific skills and specializations. So I think Jenica would be a better person to answer this. But in terms of if you are looking to study for an undergrad degree in Japan in computer science, then maybe I can answer and take this question up.
Saga, you want to start? Maybe I can just pitch in after.
Mr. Karan, I think I'm losing. Can you just repeat the question? I'll be very happy to answer.
Okay, it's a very specific question. Yes, focus on to secure high growth job opportunities and long term career prospects. Basically, the tech. It's a very large section of students here, right, who would want to study there, work there. What are the specific areas?
So, yes, so I'll answer in two parts. One is the general sentiment, but also give you, anecdotal, examples of what we are building, here in India for Japan. I think in general, Japan, like Samir said, there's a lot of talk that has to happen. Japan needs to come out more and talk about, what they're doing in terms of innovation, in terms of, the corporate scene that they have. Japan for India, fortunately, unfortunately, has been investing in the talent pool which the IITs have given. So if you see for the past 10 years, a lot of mobility, interaction, uh, idea exchange has happened between some of the top IITs in India and Japan. Both sides have benefited out of that. And as an example, like IIT Mandi offers Japanese language, as an add-on for students there. You see the movement in IIT Hyderabad, IIT Madras, and others. So there's a lot that has happened. I think this is the first time where Japan has started making inroads into non-IIT based institutions. So just in the last 1 year, we have seen a lot of that exchange and interaction. And when you see the specific topics, I think a lot is still around manufacturing. There's a lot around AI, robotics. There's a lot around mechatronics. I think they're also now the anecdotal reference that I was saying is basically Japanese corporates at this point are very interested to work with top Indian institutions on various skills that they need for their talent force, for their workforce. And what we are doing now is basically trying to connect specific Indian institutions as per the needs of those Japanese companies for where they need students, and trying to create programs and pathways both. Now, when I talk about programs, that's basically a Japanese company investing into Indian institutions and playing some part in that curriculum development, letting the students incubate in India. A big part of that program will also be language, which starts early, from the first year. And then at the end of the program, this company can pick up that whole cohort out of the Indian institution, which fills that talent pool which they're requiring. Now, you can imagine this to be 5 different companies with 5 different skills around mechatronics, IT, AI, and others, and taking the best talent from India. Where your earlier question around language when you start a job can also be answered because you will be skilled in the first 2 to 3 years, program. So I think those kind of initiatives you'll see more and more coming, where you'll have the Toyotas, the Mitsubishis, Fujitsu's working with Indian institutions and creating those kind of talents. But yes, I mean, for that particular question, we see a lot of interest still in manufacturing, mechatronics, AI, robotics, that kind of skill set. And an interesting fact there is that the Japanese language requirements there can be a little more relaxed, given the skill set is very deep in the Indian, student pool. So there are some flexibilities if you're going in these kind of fields as well.
Okay. Priyadarshini and S. Does anyone want to say something?
So, I know I just
Okay.
wanted to add to that. Of course, I'll get into the specific latest, but just to give an overview of the, kind of job ecosystem that we have in Japan, I always say that one, it is a aging society, and India, we have a lot of youth. So there is, of course, a lot of potential for Indians to go there and work there. To talk about the ratio per 100 people, there are 120 job applications in Japan. So you can see that there is a lot of gap there. I would also like to focus that the persistent demand, however, is in, of course, nursing, construction, manufacturing, etc. But employment sectors for Indian talent specifically, it can be STEM, of course. There's IT, there's a huge demand. There is AI, semiconductors is an upcoming field. Then there is software engineers, data scientists. A lot of these days jobs are about data scientists, and of course mechanical, automotive, robotics, etc. Then there was another point that I would like to mention here. Outside of IT tech jobs, there's of course teaching and education also. So for teaching and education, there are programs like there is JET program, and there are private institutions, universities that are hiring. And for other jobs, there can be consultancy jobs, R&Ds in private sectors, universities. And of course, the job and ecosystem in Japan is, of course, the safest country to work and to live, and there is advanced innovation driven environment there. And I always say that there is no hire and fire culture in Japan as opposed to other countries, so you're taken care of like your own family would take care of you. So that is something that I wanted to add here.
Yes, it's a lifetime employment. You work in a Japanese company, you stay there for years, decades. Just to, I mean, you're all experts here, but anecdotally, journalistically, one little thing that I've observed in Japan, I've visited that country many times. The Japanese seem to know a lot more about India than we Indians know about Japan. It's one of those curious things. We think they don't understand. They speak a different language, it's foreign, but they know a lot more about India. They're very familiar with India than we are with Japanese. Anyway, moving on, we have there's a question about PhD. Priyadarshini has asked about agricultural graduates in private sector as a fresher. S. Rai is asking, please talk about opportunities for PhD students and jobs related to marine science. I don't know if we have that kind of specific information, but yeah, please go ahead.
Sagar, I'll just like to add one comment here. If it's marine job, recently there was a delegation that had come to India from Sanko Denki, which is a very big company from Japan. They are now actively looking at some collaborations with universities and jobs. So I think it's an upcoming field. Right now, we don't see a lot of jobs in this field, but I think going forward, there are going to be some jobs in this field also. And also for students who are looking at working in Japan, I would like to mention, and I would also send a message later in the chat box, that there is a portal which Jetro has. It's called Open for Professionals. So it is actually a database of 300 companies where you can go through the platform, see which company is recruiting. Of course, we don't have the license, so we don't do direct job hiring, but jobs, so companies are mentioned there. And of course, the specifications, if English is a mandatory language, is Japanese a language that is a requirement there, all these specifications are there. If any student is interested in working in Japan, go through the platform, see the companies. If you're interested, you can just directly get in touch with the company through that platform. So that is something that I wanted to mention here.
Jenica, you read all our minds. That was actually our next question. Please do post it there, and I'll flash it here also. Where is this one-stop job posting job board that where we can access Japanese jobs? Excellent. Subi is asking the perennial question of Indian students for the MEXT scholarship. Besides academic merit, are there specific criteria such as research topics, field of study, or university choice that significantly increase an Indian applicant's chances of selection?
Okay, I will take this one. So, MEXT is a little complicated, so I'd like to explain the process for MEXT. So to apply for MEXT, there are two pathways. One of the pathways is the embassy recommendation, wherein you make an application to your local state's consulate. So every year, in the month of April, the embassy will release the application for MEXT. The dates are different every year, but the month is usually the same. So you have to go make an application there, and you have to, specify the subject that you're choosing. And after that, once your application and your documents are screened, you will be invited for a written exam. After your written exam is also cleared, you will be invited for an interview. So that's the process. And then once you clear the MEXT, MEXT is a full ride, as you know. So from your plane tickets to your cost of living to your tuition fee for all 4 years if you're undergrad and 2 years if you're postgrad, everything is taken care of by the Japanese government. You also get 1 year of Japanese language preparatory course as a part of your MEXT scholarship. So the other pathway of MEXT, which is less common but widely used outside of India, is the university recommendation. So that is once you apply to a Japanese university, you're enrolled in the university recommends you to the embassy saying that this is a meticulous student and they should, be selected for the MEXT. Now, because MEXT is the national scholarship, it is highly competitive and it is purely academic. So besides your academic merit, the things that they would look at is probably, if you've picked up a topic and if you're, let's say, a master's student, so is your research or your research proposal that you submit relevant to what you want to study? Have you done your research in terms of, the kind of field you'd like to study if you're a master's student? If you're an undergrad student, they would actually look at your extracurriculars. And by extracurriculars, I don't mean sports. I would rather mean, are there any projects that you've done? Are there any competitions, national level competitions or state level competitions that you've done? So apart from that, the Japanese language proficiency is not a mandate, but I have seen that in certain cases, it really helps amplify your application to the MEXT scholarship.
Okay. Vibhuti wants to know about pharmaceutical industrial quality management. I suppose you can look at the job board that Janika was talking about. She will give the URL. Priya Angamuthu wants to know about gender inclusion in Japanese institutions towards transgenders. There is a big blowback against diversity and other things in the US. It's government sanctioned. The government is against these ideas. But how is it in Japan?
So I mean, as a student there, as somebody who's been in university, I would like to tell you that it's quite open, but it's not open and out there. But there's no discrimination per se. There is no seclusion or, like it's very safe, it's very protected, even though this topic is something that the Japanese people don't touch upon quite frequently, but it's also something that is quite sensitive there, and it's not something that's usually discriminated against in universities or high schools or even at jobs. So I think that is something as a student I can vouch for.
Okay. Supriya, she's asking a very general question. Many Indian students worry about adjusting socially in Japan due to cultural and language differences. What initiatives are Japanese universities implementing to create? Are they mindful of specific needs of Indian students or foreign students? Argun is nodding.
Absolutely. So, so basically, what happens is, I think the first question that comes is obviously for the language, that you don't know the language and how would you survive in Japan, right? So, in cities like Tokyo, Osaka, Kyoto, Nagoya, the bigger cities, commercial cities, everything now is in English. So your signboards, your announcements in trains and buses, your menus, your food wrappers as well that you buy at the convenience stores, mostly everything is in English. So it's quite international. The universities actually take care of international students because they inculcate the language bit. So whatever university that you go to, whatever course that you study, be it an undergrad, postgrad, or your PhDs, the language will be a part of your curriculum. So they want to teach you the basics so that you can get by. For example, go get your groceries, go pay your bills, go to the doctor. But after that, the language becomes like a choice. If you still want to continue with it, you can. Apart from this, the universities do understand that um, the culture is quite difficult. So they have this orientation week where they match you with your buddies, and then they help you open bank accounts, they help you open your pensions, they help you apply for the health insurance, they help you get a house if you need a house and if you still not have your own apartment. So there are things that they help you with. This entire week is where the international offices of all universities, so usually the intake for international students is fall. So in the month of October, the first week is all international officers helping international students with these little things. And it's a very supportive environment in the universities because it's also very international. So one other good aspect about studying in Japan is how diverse your classrooms are. So personal experience, I was in a class of 45 students and I was the only Indian, and we had people from 23 countries. So it was a very diverse pool of people that I was studying next to. And this is a similar situation in most of the Japanese universities because there are going to be people from all over the world. It's not very infiltrated with Indians yet. So you'll have a very diverse pool of people, and the universities actually understand that because they understand that these undergrad kids or postgrad kids are coming from very different cultures, so they take care of it. They have canteens or cafeterias where there are different options of food. So for example, there is a specific community who likes halal food. There are halal food options, there are vegetarian food options, there are vegan food options. So food is also usually taken care of. So I think it's quite supportive.
Okay. Kavin Rajan, with Japan's push to attract skilled professionals, what structured internship or industry academia collaboration opportunities are available for Indian students in the IT sector? Just as a jobs board, is there an internship board?
So, like I said, the job board that we have, it is companies who are looking at recruiting full-time people also, and not only full-time, but there are of course internship opportunities. So there's both. You can filter down for the internship opportunities, and you can filter down for full-time job opportunities. So there's both available there.
Excellent. Okay. I'm just scrolling down. There's so many questions that have come. There was one you intervened about education, educators. What opportunities are there for educators? Many questions relate to that.
So I think recently the embassy has started this program. It's called the JET program. So you can apply and you can start teaching English. It's an English language program there. And of course, outside of that, there is private institutions, universities looking at people who can speak in English, who are fluent in English, and who can teach English there in Japan. So these are the kind of educational opportunities. I also know of universities in Japan. For example, there's Shimane University. I know of Indian teachers who are not just teaching English there, but they're actually involved in academics. There is an assistant professor in University of Tokyo. I'm sure Hargun also knows. So these are kind of educational opportunities, of course, available in Japan.
Okay, I will highlight Sagar's intervention. He's given the URL www.navijapan.ai. He's saying many of the questions that people have asked here, the answers can be found here. Please, can we highlight his? So it's www.navijapan.ai. Okay, beyond fresh graduates, what pathways exist for mid-career professionals? Are Japanese universities now linking scholarships with the guaranteed internships or placements? How does that work when you graduate from a Japanese university? Like in the US, you have a H-1B program, it's in the news a lot for the wrong reasons. But is there a structured program like that? You graduate from there, there is a pathway, there's an OPT, and then there's a pathway towards getting a short-term visa, and then, like in the US, a green card and so on. How does that work?
So, in terms of jobs and job hunting and finally getting a job in Japan, it's a different process. So, how in India we have campus placements, or in the US, UK, we have career days. Japan is very different. It functions very differently. So, they have they have their international offices and their career offices, and there's something called a job hunting season in Japan. So that is a very tricky 3 month period where the entire country's graduates or fresh grads are looking for a job, and all the companies are usually hiring. So the universities prepare students for that. They guide them for that, and they also match the students with the relevant companies and profiles, because, like I said, that the industry connect for good universities in Japan is very, very strong. So um, a lot of students actually use that industry connect. Now what happens is, the ideal scenario is that when you are, let's say, an undergrad student, so in your 4th year you start looking for a job, and then you graduate with a job in hand. So that's the ideal scenario in Japan. So if you graduate with a job in hand, there's no cap to the work visa per se. So for as long as the company wants to keep you employed and you want to work with that company, you can stay and live in Japan and work in Japan. But let's say you don't find a job and you were like busy, or you were involved in some research or whatever. So by the time you graduate, your student visa can get converted to a special designated activity visa, which is a job hunting visa that you initially get for 6 months, and then you can extend it again for another 6 months, and then again and again. That's the time that you get to stay in the country and hunt for a job as well. So ideally, that's how it works. In terms of PR, in terms of a green card, PR in Japan usually is like 10 years, but there are certain, point system that if you've studied in Japan, if you know the language, you're working in a particular field, you're married to a Japanese person, you get certain points and the time reduces shorter. In terms of citizenship, it's not that easy. Japan does not offer citizenship that easily. So there's a different process for that, completely different process for that.
Okay, there's a related question. Beyond fresh graduates, what pathways exist for mid-career professionals? Has Japan's new immigration policy made it easier for Indians to bring families and settle long-term, or is it still mostly short-term work contracts?
I don't think any one of us would be, in that particular domain to get to the specifics of employment contracts and all at this point, I think.
Okay,
But
but
I think I
Oh, yeah.
I'll
go ahead,
try.
Harvey. Go ahead.
There are short-term, so there are term contracts, and then there is like a full-time contract in Japan. And usually, if it's a term contract, it's 6 months to 1 year. And then if you're like a full-time employee or like a permanent employee, then like I said, there's like, for as long as the company wants to keep you and you want to be employed, you can stay. These short-term contracts are usually for the special skilled workforce. So the SSW program that Japan has, they are usually the short-term contracts. You can actually search more on the internet about it, because as Sagar said, we might not be the right people for it, but that exists. So there's like short-term as well as long-term.
Okay. Yashaswini Pottimurthy. As a law student, I'm curious to know. She's basically asking about non-STEM fields. We did discuss it a little bit, but what are the major non-STEM fields where you could go and study or work in Japan?
So, if it's particularly law, there's one comment that I like to make. A lot of Japanese companies who are exploring the Indian market or already present in the Indian market, their basic issues is IP. So, it's patent infringement and counterfeit. These are some of the issues that they're always focusing on. So, I think if you have to choose any particular field or that may have more potential in Japan, it could be IP, because then you can act like a bridge between Indian companies and Japanese companies, and you can support the Japanese companies who are exploring the Indian market. So that can be one of the fields.
Okay. C. Gopalakrishnan is conveying his best wishes to the newly elected Prime Minister. Japan is having its first woman Prime Minister, who coincidentally, or not coincidentally, who, by the way, has said, talked about, working more, working harder. And there was a question about how do we adjust to Japan, where people seem to be working insanely long hours. Is that how it is?
I think very similar to India also. I feel all of us, are wired in a way of how our work ethic moves. We're very dedicated to, own responsibilities to deliver those responsibilities at the highest levels. And I think in my recent interactions with different stakeholders in Japan, we've been able to pick up similar or even, I think, areas where I would have learned a lot, as a working professional from the work ethic. Uh, I think, yes, I mean, there are instances where we have seen, that kind of extra effort being put in. But I won't say that that's any different from how we have seen some of the corporate behavior that we see in India as well, where, when you're passionate, that kind of work really, goes on. But there's a lot of learning in terms of work ethic, patience, how things are so perfect in how they manage stuff. So yeah, it's been a great journey. One of the things that I just want to step back, and a lot of questions, that you see here, Mr. Kalyan, are around, hinting towards how unfamiliar we all can be towards Japan. And I just want to remind our audience that when you look at when the Ukraine crisis happened, all of us were amazed to see that we had 23,000 Indian students in Ukraine, which is even more unfamiliar when you think about as an education destination. As we talk, we have more than 20 to 25,000 Chinese Indian students in China, which is equally unfamiliar or different from how we would see traditional study destinations. So I think that's one mindset that all of us will have to work on. And very interestingly, when we interact with students, schools, institutions, I think at the start the level of familiarity is much lower. And the moment you start reminding them that, as an instance, when you look at a traffic, when you're stuck in traffic in any Indian road, 90% of those cars will be Toyotas or your Nissans to Suzukis. You ride the Delhi metro. It is something that Japan, has worked hard with us to build. The QR codes that we use, that we are so proud of our Paytms and Google Pays, has that technology has come from Japan. Instant noodles, Buddhism itself is a great connection to show between India and Japan. The first transnational education happened between Japanese students coming to Nalanda University in India, 4th century BC. So there's a lot of familiarity, I think, in the whole run for what we do. I think we just look through it. And I think that's what we all need to do, and just remind ourselves that there are a lot of common connections between the two countries. It is not as unfamiliar as we think. And when a student or a parent looks at uh, studying abroad and that decision, I think there are just three or four things that we have seen in the last 2 decades with our experience of what they look. They look at quality education, they look at return on investment, affordability, and most importantly, the safety as well. And I think at this point, Japan is one of the only countries which can put a tick on all those boxes, given that they're also helping in that job mobility front as well. They are teaching in English. Some of the programs in a university like University of Tokyo, which is ranked 32nd in the world, is as low as 3 to 4 lakhs per year. Now you imagine in a safe place that kind of quality, the kind of labs, you get assistance to find work, you can work part time, and the fee is only lesser than a private institution in India. I think that is exactly the messaging that has to go in India, where the opportunities are.
Okay, I will once again repeat the URL, navijapan.ai, navijapan.ai. Please do go to that website, um, and if you want to get started on this higher studies in Japan and working in Japan. There is a question, beyond scholarships, what unique advantages does Japan offer Indian students that truly set it apart from destinations like the US or UK?
I can start, and Hargun, if you want to come in as a student, you can. I think the first key aspect will be it's one of the welcoming nations at this point. You know, a lot of countries will have different policies and regimes. Japan at this point very proudly is saying that they want Indian talent. I think that's the biggest, kind of differentiator for Japan to come in. Secondly, the quality of education. When you see there are 10 Japanese universities in the top 200 when it comes to rankings. Universities like University of Tokyo, Kyoto, Osaka are top-ranked universities. The level of research is world-class. You got, I think, no, I think Tokyo has around and Kyoto has around 10 to 11 Nobel laureates, coming out from the campus. So excellent quality as well. I spoke about the fee structure. The fee structure is not more than 3 to 5 lakhs per year, which is unimaginably, low. And also, it's not low because of any other aspect, but the concept of Japan is so unique that they believe in the equity of fees. An international student can pay similar to what a domestic student would pay. So these are the principles that they'll work with. Apart from that, for Supriya, any student generally would like to work part time, which is a policy Japan has. Hargun explained how post the job as well, you can get the visa extensions to find jobs. And now all this, what we're talking about, is being taught in English as well. So I think, like I said, it just ticks all those boxes. I don't know whether any of us would have seen Tokyo consistently has been ranked as the second best student city in the world as per QS rankings. And that's a consistent feature. Kyoto features also in that list. Osaka also features, somewhere in that list. So I think it just, how Samir said, more has to be talked about of these aspects and compare them with the traditional big fours that we have.
Would you like to intervene, Hargun, or shall we move on?
I think Sagar touched upon most of the points. I
Okay.
think one of the things that would be something that I would add is the cultural immersion. Because one thing that I loved personally about Japan was how it's a perfect blend of modern and traditional. So that is something that is very unique to Japan, because on one side of the road is a centuries old shrine at Asakusa, and across the street is a very sky high Tokyo Tower. So that's something that is very, very unique to Japan. And the cultural immersion is something that is, I think it's one of the best things that you would experience as a student in Japan.
Mm. And coming from my personal experience, because I work in a Japanese organization, I think one of the things that you're encouraged is, of course, they take great importance in the employee growth. So they would encourage you continuously for taking up courses. I know of companies like Fujitsu based out of India. They provide courses. They would encourage you to constantly learn and train under them. So that is something that you can expect when you work in a Japanese company, is your long-term growth.
Yeah, it's a little more caring than other countries. It's probably in their culture. You sort
You
of
become a part of your family when you're working in a Japanese
exactly,
organization.
yeah, you become part of a group, and then the group moves along and they take you in your life, 30, 40 years.
Yeah,
Okay,
the
here's an
concept is that when the employee grows, the company grows. That is the motto of Japanese companies.
okay, very positive. And you also learn how frugal they are, how careful they are with things. You print something and then they will write on the other side. These are things we can learn from. There is an interesting question. It's something we've not considered. I have not considered that the Japanese currency is highly depreciated against all currencies. That's their history. Should we still consider Japan as a destination for job hunting? How is currency? Is there an economic logic to this? As other currencies like USD are appreciating against the rupee.
I mean, I can talk about my 2 cents here. One would be, I think with depreciating yen, generally the cost of living is also quite low. A lot of things, and I think I had that perception before my first travel to Japan that it's quite expensive. That's what we kept hearing, both in terms of living, getting stuff for long-term stays and all. But I think that perception quickly changed, in the first few days itself. So when you work in Japan, when you stay in Japan, even as a student or as a working professional, I think things are quite uh, inexpensive as compared to what your perception levels are. But having said that, the second part is, while the USD or the GBP, of course, are appreciating, and even the Indian currency is depreciating to certain levels, I think the fundamental question is, are you finding jobs? Uh, as Acumen, we are hearing more and more international universities investing in post returning graduate employability measures. So you have University of Sydney, for example, which has an official through us in India, who's helping students who are coming back find jobs in India, and that's a big new world that we are all getting into. So while we have appreciating currencies in some of the traditional destinations, I think full-time jobs are still a concern of how easy it is to get there, which in countries like Japan and Korea can still be easier in my view, given the demographic kind of challenges that these two countries will face and are facing. So I think that's the perfect moment which all of us, with our geographical demographic dividend, should capitalize on.
Okay. As a final year BCom student from Indore, I'm seeking assist guidance on pursuing a master's degree in Japan. Could you please identify top universities offering English taught commerce or management programs? Is there, of all the URLs we've discussed, is there a place where you list the sort of English language programs that are being taught?
I'll set context. I think I'll clear like I typed as well.
Okay.
When we took this project for study in Japan, I think we were very clear that India will offer a big pool of students the moment we are able to define what Japan has to offer. We also were very quick to understand that all the Japanese university processes can be very tedious, can be very different. Each university within their different schools have different forms, different requirements. Language can be a barrier in filling forms and information. And how generally US, UK, Australian universities have operated in India, I think they've been able to manage with the kind of impatience that we would have. Like you're talking about students wanting offer letters in 2 days. They get a response instantly. When they have a question from the university, and I think with that kind of pretext, we proposed that we should have a common platform where all the Japanese universities can start putting what they have to offer. It can have features around live chats, can connect the university and the students in ways which just makes it seamless. And that's exactly where Navi Japan came in. It's a platform where Japanese universities under Study Japan mandate have put in their information of English language programs. What are the scholarships of MEXT, non-MEXT? When are the intakes? What's the requirement? What are the English programs, Japanese programs? So all these kind of questions of different courses, domains, opportunities can all be found on that official gateway. It has options of speaking to experts, connecting to the university, putting your applications in. So I think that'll be quite useful and a powerful tool for Japan to plant itself in this big uh, pool of students that are aspiring to study abroad.
Okay. Um, David Babu Rajat says, very short, simple question. Is that Japanese language difficult to learn? How difficult is it compared to any other language? More difficult?
I think me and Hargun can answer this. So I think it has levels. It goes from N5 to N1. N5 being the most basic one goes up to N1. For you to work in a company in Japan, usually they ask for N3 or N2 level. However, if you have other skills like IT, then like Sagar said, they're more flexible on the N1, the N level that you have. For every level, you need 6 months to study. Depends on, of course, how many hours of study you put in every day. It's easier starting from N5. It, of course, going beyond N3, it's a different ball game altogether. It's I would say easier to pass till N3. After that, N2, N1, it can be quite challenging considering that Japanese language itself has three scripts as compared to other languages which only has one script. So it has kanjis, hiragana, katakana. So anyone who wants to work in Japan, I would encourage them to at least study till N4, which means 1 year of studying Japanese language.
Okay. Thank you. Um, Shashikant Gautam, we did discuss this briefly, but let's get the last word on MEXT. How common is it for students to receive a Japanese government? How common? Or what are the criteria for selection? How does this work? Like in the US, for instance, you go and study a master's degree. You get scholarships that are decided by the universities, and then you possibly get a teaching assistantship with that you some kind of make do. Does that work? Do you get TAs there? And how the MEXT process, what are the criteria? Is it available for all kinds, or just STEM? Do they focus on STEM, or is it any field?
So, in terms of answering your question for MEXT and how common it is, generally, I think as per government data, there are around close to 10,000 students all over the world that the Japanese government supports through MEXT. So for each country, you have around 25 to 30 students each year who gets the MEXT scholarship. And the application is usually 10 times, 100 times for it. So it's not very easy to get. It's highly competitive, as I touched upon previously as well, and it's very academic and it's very merit based. So there's an application process to it. You have to make a formal application to the embassy and or your local state consulate if you have, and then there's a screening process, then there is a written examination. So based on the subjects that you want to study, you can you have to give 2 written exams. You can choose the subjects, and after that there's an interview, and then you get the MEXT. So it's a long lengthy process. So it's competitive is the right word, but there are students who get the MEXT. We also know of students who received the MEXT scholarship and are studying fully funded in Japan. So the MEXT is a full ride scholarship. Your plane ticket from India to your cost of living, to your tuition fee for 4 years, and your plane tickets back to India from Japan. Everything is covered by the Japanese government. I believe there was a second part of the question as well, which if
It
you
was
can
about
flash.
mainly about MEXT.
Okay. I hope I answered it this time.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think it'll also be good for everyone to know that there are other scholarships as well, with every institution would offer, you know, to Indian students and international students. So you'll be again able to find that on the platform. But generally, a lot of institutions offer good scholarships for Indian students and other students who are coming internationally to them.
Okay. Many are asking about MBA. Hargun, would you like to take those questions?
So
You
I
did your
did my
MBA.
MBA in Japan. Yeah.
Okay.
So so I think two things that you need to look at is, I mean, obviously there are around 800 universities in Japan, and out of those 800 universities, somewhere around 90 of them offer courses entirely in English. So you don't need to know a single word of Japanese to study there, go there, work there. You can obviously look at and search these universities at Navi Japan, or you can do a Google search as well. But for an MBA degree, it's usually 2 years in Japan. So they look at your work experience. So minimum, they usually look at like 2.5 years of work experience. If you don't have that much work experience, then you can also sit for the GMAT exam, and they accept the GMAT scores. Other things they look at is your undergrad transcripts, your 10th and 12th marks, your extracurriculars if you've done any. And for any masters in Japan, be it MBA or be it masters in engineering or whatever, you do have to submit a research plan or a research proposal. So that's also something which is quite unique to Japan, because most of the universities, as I said, are very academic. So they're very research heavy. So as an MBA student, I also studied for 2 years, but I also did a research because it was a part of my curriculum. So please be aware that as an MBA student, while you would do internships, you would also do research.
Interesting point that it's more research focused. MBAs in Japan are more research focused. Okay. Samir, you touched upon something about how schools and colleges can consider offering Japanese language teaching and training. Now, how does any? I'm sure many of those are watching here They're probably principals, teachers, people who run institutions. How do you even initiate something like that?
So I think it has got a twofold sort of question. How many qualified teachers are there in the country who can teach Japanese? So I think first of all, building a course where at a scale you can teach or train teachers at a large scale to teach Japanese language in Indian schools. Because I think, as I mentioned earlier, also with the strategic partnership, if the human resources is one of the focus area for both the governments, no matter what we say, language of instruction in the universities, when you want to get assimilated in a society, you got to know the language of that country. So I think that's one part to the problem. I think at a macro level, universities can start offering courses for teaching qualifications of Japanese as a second language or as a third language. That's one part. The other part could also be Indo-Japan Center or faculty exchange programs between the governments, wherein a Japanese teacher comes to India and teaches for 6 months. I mean, it could be an undergraduate student or a graduate student, and is introduced not at a formal level, but as clubs and students who want to pursue the languages at a micro level. So this is the two way we can address the problem of having as many language teachers, Japanese language teachers in the country. So training the trainer, first of all, and also having short-term measures of bringing in workforce from Japan on a short-term assignments to build love for language and also run language clubs in schools. So, for example, if schools in geography are in a nearby geography can share the same teacher doesn't have to be deputed or deployed in a school for full time. The teacher can be employed based on the number of days schools mutually agree. Or so we have organizations like IB Heads Association. We have programs like Sahodaya with CBSE. The clusters of school can come together and talk about it. I don't know if that answers your question. I'm happy to.
Yeah, I can add a few things.
Yes.
So
Yes.
one is you see a lot of intervention of Japanese language training from Japan Foundation. So as per the Japanese government mandate, they've been, and recently, just 2 weeks back, they had Japanese trainers coming to India, and they've allocated those trainers to 6 schools in Delhi. So they are taking their turns and trying to train the trainer and spend time. I think close to around 6 months or so in schools, and then they train the trainer and they move on. So there are those kind of interventions that are happening. Just that I think the scalability which India has to offer cannot be met, through this. So as soon as the Prime Minister, our Prime Minister met the Japanese Prime Minister last month, uh, there were uh, initiatives which were launched. One of them is the Japanese language labs, which basically are centers within different schools. You'll see the first 3 to 5 of them being announced in December. These are centers which will basically use a hybrid mode of teaching, which is in person, certain sessions and interventions where a core school will be able to bring students together on a periodic basis, but a lot of uh, online teaching will be used to get that scale. So I think that'll be something which you'll see very often and very, very soon to be announced. I think the other thing which we've understood from schools is that it's not just the language, but we'll have to get some part of culture to get the students excited. So how anime, how food, travel, tourism, certain things can be inculcated right from an early age, so that they're excited about the culture and the language. So it doesn't become like a subject which they have to clear. So that's also a big discussion we had with the Japanese delegation who met, a number of schools of how this can be interesting, for students to continue. And if I go back to what Janika was saying, if from an N1 to N5 to N1, even if you're able to do it for 1 or 2 years sincerely, you at least reach a particular stage. Now, Japanese language labs will be an effort to go to grade sixth, and if we're able to pick up that kind of student body that early, which can continue till they reach 12th, I think there'll be ample amount of language training that students would need. And it's just not just language. Then you're also talking about a student pool which thinks about Japan as an option. Right now, what the problem is, because US is not a viable option, or because a particular country is not a viable option, we are trying to say, okay, why not look at Japan? But as soon as we introduce language early, Japan will be one of the first two choices, maybe, for these students who are influenced and are excited about Japan. Then.
And I think it goes
Okay.
back to the same question about bringing awareness about Japan as a country. So it's a multifold interventions across different levels. Awareness, language teaching, cultural assimilation. So thank you, Sagar.
Okay. The questions are still coming. We need to wind up, but we may perhaps take a couple of more questions. There, did Krishna Kumar is asking about online and distance education programs in Japanese universities. He's talking about public policy and governance, but in general, are there? Can you study online and distance education?
Not as many options. It's
Okay.
usually during COVID, of course, things were distance learning, but now it's mostly on campus. So you will have to enroll in a university or a vocational school or a short-term program if that's what you're interested, like public policy or governance. But you'll have to learn on campus.
Okay. We will close with this question. Indians, we need Indian food. So, do we get South Indian and North Indian cuisines? Can we get idli sambar in college canteens? Well, I don't think you can get them in any canteens anywhere else in the world. But I think Hargun has already answered this question. Not at the canteens, but there are many Indian restaurants in Japan where you can
And
easily get. What about
yeah.
Indian stores? Indians in the US, for instance, every city has a couple of Indian stores where you can get all your, basmati rice and all that stuff. Are there Indian stores in Japan where you can go and get your spices?
I think there are
See,
quite a few. There are, of course, these spices, rice, Indian, in fact, MDH masalas from Haldiram's. You get everything there. And there's one thing that I always tell people that when you're in Japan, you should embrace the local culture and cuisine. So don't stick to, dal chawal and idli. And in fact, the most wonderful part about Japan is the 7-Elevens, the convenience store culture that they have. Every few meters, you have a 7-Eleven or the local convenience store where you get your sandwiches and the rice, onigiri. So there are a lot of vegetarian options as well. And any time of the night, run 24/7. You can just go there, pick whatever you want to eat, and it's so convenient. It's so fresh. So I
Yeah,
hope
okay.
but
that is reassuring.
when you talk about Indian food, my first trip to Japan, I think 10 to 14 days, Hargun was kind enough to spend a few days with me. And I was experimenting with all the kind of food. And on the last day, I was really craving for Indian food. And I think there were many options, including both of us enjoyed pani puri, golgappa there. So you technically get everything there if you want to think of
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Okay. On a happy note. Okay. Aftab Seth has been intervening a lot in the comment section. He has talked about online programs and how um, Indian schools there, 75 years, lot of experience, lot of legacy there. It's not really unfamiliar, as Sagar was saying. Okay, there's Aditri Shinde. There's a restaurant chain called Coco Ichibanya, which give curry rice, which is convenient. Okay, practical tips. All right, so we we should wind up. The questions keep coming, but as Sagar was saying before, that the, the way the Japanese work is they don't look at it in a scattered, way. It's very structured. So if the government is, I mean, if for instance in the US, even when the US did not have very friendly relationships with India, Indians were still going. India was officially in the or unofficially in the Soviet camp, but Japan doesn't work. It's comprehensive and it's very deliberate and it's long term. It's not that okay, next year we want 20,000 Indians. Doesn't work like that. They engage with schools, colleges, institutions, government policy, and there's something to facilitate. So that's so over a longer period, as a part of how Japan engages with India closely, there will be certainly more doors opening for higher studies and jobs in Japan. I believe that's a takeaway from this, Sagar. Would you say that?
Yes, I think very nicely put that. I think that's one of the countries which basically is coming at all different levels with all different stakeholders. with a lot of patience, with I think a long-term strategy, and trying to hear us. I think for the last 1 year, we have seen so many meetings, so many interventions where I think they've only taken those inputs and coming back more strongly with what really will work well for India, and then can translate into what Japan is looking at. So yes, I think that's been a refreshing kind of change for us to see as well, of how a destination can build itself on quality and long-term vision.
Okay, we need to wind up, but Satwat Razak is insisting that we answer his questions, so we will oblige him as much as possible. Please respond to my question as well. Job opportunities. If I want to do masters and then work in non-science streams, I have done. This was answered, Satwat. But anyway, would someone want to answer this question? I have done graduation in law, so want related fields. Not same though, as legal field can be difficult outside my own country.
I mean, I can briefly answer just to say I think there are many other fields which Japan is inviting students for, non-STEM, non-engineering. You see a lot of arts, language, culture, that kind of stream as well, management. And I think for Satwat, anything that you would need, study in Japan team will be very happy to answer those questions in Navi Japan as well. But just like you, I think a lot of students, aspirants are looking at non-STEM, non-technical programs, and they are getting that kind of assistance.
Excellent. We do need to wind up. It's been an excellent discussion, a big eye opener has it's been for me, and I hope it's for others also. We did mention some URLs. Navi Japan. It's not just a website. It's also a app that you can download. It's a platform that is sort of a one-stop solution, or it's a one window to many things that we discussed in this. I hope this was very useful to everyone who came on the link, and also this will be there as a recording on the Hindu YouTube channel as a live. In the live section, this will be there, so you can go watch and hopefully benefit. Thank you so much. Thanks everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you so much, Kalyan.